The day I felt the full strength return to my leg was the day everything ended, and the day everything truly began. I had prepared a large dinner, waiting for Clara to come home from work. I imagined a quiet celebration, just the two of us. But the hours ticked by. The food grew cold on the table, and she never arrived. Instead, what I received was a photograph sent to my phone. It showed her kissing another man. In the picture, her posture was everything. One of her hands, the one that still wore the engagement ring I'd given her, was wrapped tightly around the back of his neck, her fingers digging in. Her other arm was secured around his waist, the veins on her forearm standing out as if she were trying to pull him into herself. Her eyes, fixed on him, held a look of fierce possession, a look I hadn't seen directed at me in a very long time. I zoomed in on the man's face, and a cold, familiar dread washed over me. It was Julian. My heart didn't just sink. It felt like it plummeted into an icy abyss. Julian was the man Clara had been infatuated with back in college. The year I first met him was also the first year I was confined to a wheelchair. Back then, Clara's eyes were still filled with a gentle pity and a lingering sense of love for me. After all, my injury was her fault. And the guilt was a powerful chain. But love and guilt, I learned, couldn't stand up to the slow grind of daily life, the monotony and the confinement that my condition imposed on us both. Soon, she started talking about a man named Julian. "Leo, did you hear about that guy Julian winning the campus race? He's so arrogant." He had the nerve to tell the professor my report wasn't worthy of an A. She claimed to despise arrogant men, so she claimed to despise Julian. But if she truly hated him, why did her eyes always seem to find him in a crowded room? When I heard he had gotten into trouble during a protest in another country, she scoffed at his recklessness. But the worry in her eyes was impossible to miss. She would drop me off at our apartment and then rush out, and I knew she was likely pulling strings with her family's connections to help him, telling herself it was just because they were from the same country. But I knew Clara better than that. I looked him up myself. Julian always had this bright, fearless smile, a stark contrast to the quiet depression that had settled over me in my wheelchair. That smile was unnervingly familiar. It was the same kind of smile I used to have. In the 2 years that their drama played out, I was never sure who was pursuing whom. Then, Julian's family business collapsed, and he had to drop out of school. Clara spent weeks frantically trying to find him, then eventually gave up and settled back into her life with me. A few days before the photograph, I'd heard from mutual friends that Julian was back. He had returned not in failure, but with his own successful brand. The man Clara once had a crush on, who had shone so brightly, was now a blazing star. It was no wonder she was drawn to him again. I understood it perfectly. Clara admired strength. Back in high school, we attended the same elite institution where everyone was either wealthy or from a powerful family. My competitive nature and natural leadership made me the student council president. Clara and her friends were the resident rebels, always pushing the boundaries. We should have been like oil and water. One day she cornered me in an empty classroom, demanding I erase some disciplinary records for her friends. I ignored her and grabbed the ringleader, slamming him against the wall hard enough to make his nose bleed. "You want me to cover medical bills? Come find me later. Now get out," I said to the stunned group. The room fell silent. No one dared to challenge me again, mostly because they all knew my family essentially owned the school. Clara, whose own family was on a similar level as mine, wasn't angry. Instead, her eyes held a new spark of curiosity and interest. From that day on, she was a constant presence, always finding a reason to be near me. I didn't pay her much mind until she followed me to the same university. Our fates were sealed the day of my accident, an accident that happened because of her. I went from being a bright, promising star to a shadow of my former self, consumed by endless rehabilitation and chronic pain. I lost my edge, becoming soft and accommodating, a person who catered to her every whim. My entire sense of happiness became rooted in her approval, and Clara, I came to realize, hated that version of me. 5 years of that dull routine, and a woman like her, who craved excitement, was bound to get bored. The cold metal of my wheelchair had become a cage for us both. I was no longer a person to her. I was a responsibility, background noise. My father's call was furious. "Get home now," he barked. When I arrived, he threw a financial newspaper onto my lap. There, taking up a quarter of the business page, was a picture of Clara and Julian kissing at a business gala. "This is the woman you sacrificed everything for?" he demanded. My mother, her hands trembling with anger, said, "Leo, is this really the kind of person you chose?" My younger sister, Sophie, barely looked up from her phone. "Leo, it's not just your legs that are useless," she mocked. "Your taste in women is a disgrace to the family." "Watch your mouth," my mother snapped at her. "That's your older brother." My legs had always been a forbidden topic in our house. Sophie just gave a cold little snort, rolled her eyes, and went upstairs. I watched her go, a flicker of my old sharpness flashing in my eyes before it settled back into disappointment. My mother, seeing the exchange, softened. My father, however, looked grim. "Our family is in a difficult position now," he said in a low voice. "If we let you continue this relationship, it brings shame on all of us. But if you break it off, it could negatively impact our business partnerships with her family. We've invested so much in you, and you can't even manage to keep one woman in line." A chill went through me, as if I'd been dropped into a cave of ice. I clenched my left fist so tightly my fingernails dug into my palm. Looking down, I admitted, "I know I'm not good enough. Clara liked me for my abilities back then. Now that I just cling to her, she's bound to get tired of it." My dad's reply cut deeper than anything. "When we didn't let you join the company's executive track, it was because of your leg. Did you want the whole world to laugh at us?" To my father, his image and his profits were all that mattered. Without a formal position in the company, even my own family looked down on me. "What do you mean?" my mother exclaimed. "Did Clara bully you?" I put on a look of quiet, wounded pride. I knew my mother had a soft spot for me. She slammed her hand on the table. "Unbelievable! Daring to bully our son!" She took my hand, her grip warm and dry. "I've decided. I'm giving you half of my shares in the company. They were always meant for you and your sister anyway. She's still young, but you're 25. You need to have something substantial to your name." A genuine warmth spread through my chest. 10% of the company's shares was more than enough to start. "Thank you, Mom," I said, hugging her. But her next words made the warmth turn cold again. "Learn how to manage the business so you can help your sister in the future." I felt my shoulders slump, but I nodded and put on a sweet voice. "Okay, I'll help take care of the company with her." When Clara finally came home that night, I had the photograph from the newspaper printed out and sitting on the coffee table. The living room was lit by a single dim lamp, casting her face in a mixture of warm light and deep shadow. Her frown deepened when she saw me. "So, what do you want?" she asked, her tone cold and unapologetic. I was her official fiancé, holding proof of her infidelity, yet she acted as if I were the one inconveniencing her. Her eyes were calm, almost impatient, as if she were completely certain I would never leave her. She was just annoyed that I was throwing what she saw as a tantrum. Years ago, those same eyes held only love and surrender for me. I swallowed my rage and tried for a gentle tone. "Clara, doing this, and being seen by both of our families. It's only going to hurt Julian's reputation." I thought I was being remarkably understanding, but the moment I mentioned Julian's name, she exploded. She strode over to my wheelchair, looking down at me with a gaze full of distrust and menace. "Leo, if you ever dare to hurt Julian again, I swear I won't spare you." It was the first time Clara had ever been truly furious with me, and it was all for him. "What do you mean, again?" I asked, genuinely bewildered. She glared down at me. "It was you, wasn't it? You were the one who got Julian's family investigated and forced him to drop out of school." Her hand clamped around my throat, and real anger sparked in her eyes. "Leo, after all this time, how could you still be so cruel? If Julian hadn't been clever enough to get away, you would have ruined him." The pain and the fear of suffocation were overwhelming. "Clara," I choked out, "I never did anything like that. Is that really the kind of person you think I am?" Meeting my tear-filled eyes, her grip faltered for a second, but her annoyance only seemed to grow. She let go, watching coldly as I gasped for air. A hatred that was almost impossible to suppress surged inside me. "Leo, you were hurt because of me," she said, her voice flat. "Do whatever you want to me. Just don't harm anyone else, and don't disappoint me." With that, she turned and walked out the door. She didn't come back the next day. I knew exactly where she had gone. An invitation had appeared on my phone from an unknown number. It was for Julian's welcome home party, held on a yacht owned by Clara's family. At the party, Julian was the center of attention, his face glowing with a cheerful confidence that time had only enhanced, adding a layer of sophisticated charm. Clara stood by his side, watching him with an affection so deep it was impossible to deny. People moved around them, praising them as the perfect couple. Julian seemed pleased by the comments, and Clara just looked at him with a soft smile, not correcting anyone. The irony was that my engagement ring was still on her finger. When Julian saw me roll onto the deck, the cheerfulness drained from his face, replaced by a thin, mocking smile. "Leo, I didn't think you'd actually have the nerve to show up." All eyes turned to me, and seeing the wheelchair, surprise rippled through the crowd. Clara's expression hardened, the deep affection in her eyes replaced with something complicated and guarded. Facing his taunting look, I responded calmly, "You invited me, of course I'd come." He sneered, leaning in to whisper, "You really think you can take Clara back? She's not leaving with you." His gaze slid down to my legs, his contempt palpable. "If you hadn't used those dirty tricks to push me out back then, you'd be nothing but a third wheel, Leo." Julian was losing his composure. His face twisted with anger as he picked up a glass of red wine and poured it over my legs. The dark red liquid streamed down, a bitter reminder of the blood from my accident. And Clara just stood there, watching, indifferent to the entire scene. "You don't deserve her," Julian ranted. "You're a wicked cripple who trapped her with guilt." I didn't wait for him to finish. I grabbed a clean glass from a nearby table and threw it. He screamed, but not a single drop touched him because Clara had stepped directly in his path. She looked at me, her eyes blazing with fury. "Leo, how many more people are you going to hurt because of those legs?" I stared back at her stubbornly. "I didn't do what he said. Why won't you ever believe me?" This wasn't the rebellious, slightly awkward girl I remembered. This woman, who had once sworn she would protect me for the rest of her life, was now standing on the other side of a battlefield she had created. The crowd around us started pointing fingers, their whispers turning into open mockery. These people were smart. They didn't care about right or wrong, only about siding with Clara. She seemed oblivious to the insults being thrown at me, her entire focus on shielding Julian as if I were the real threat. His friends threatened to have security throw me overboard. I just sat there, surrounded, and accused. "Come back with me, Clara," I said, my voice shaky, hating how much I sounded like a pathetic character, begging his wife to come home. Julian's lazy, arrogant voice cut through the noise. "Clara, if you leave with him today, I'm getting on a plane to France tomorrow, and I'm never coming back." His words were a spoiled, childish ultimatum. Clara made her choice. She took Julian's hand, holding it tight. The whispers around us intensified. "Leo's love is just pathetic." I lowered my head, as if in defeat, but really it was to hide the smile that was threatening to break out. "Love?" I scoffed internally. For years, everyone thought I was hopelessly dependent on Clara, unable to function without her. But how could I love someone who couldn't even be loyal to the idea of love? Maybe, back in those wild days of our youth, I felt something real for the girl who defied everyone to stand by me. But now, all that was left was a deep, cold hatred for her. If it weren't for her, my legs would be fine. How did Leo, end up like this? Back then, she had gotten into a fight with another girl at school. That girl, drunk and furious, tried to run Clara down with her car. I pushed her out of the way and took the hit myself. That was the day I became disabled. My father, a businessman to his core, had only ever shown real affection for my sister. No matter what I accomplished, he never truly saw me. And my mother, who loved me, still put Sophie first. Sophie was their chosen heir. I was taught piano and painting, while Sophie studied finance and management. They said I would be the handsome, cultured face of the company, Sophie's best assistant. But I refused to lose simply because of my gender. I was determined to take everything I wanted with my own abilities. The accident put all of those plans on hold. I was sidelined, disabled, and dismissed by my own family. The only card I had left to play was Clara's love and guilt. I never expected her loyalty to waver so quickly. So, for the past 5 years, I had stayed by her side. It was a strategic position. First, it allowed me to network and stay informed about market trends through her connections. Second, it was a constant, living reminder to her of my injured legs, keeping her guilt fresh and potent. I deliberately became the weak, needy person she hated to ensure no real emotional ties could bind us. Her love, had it been real, would have disgusted me. Meanwhile, I was secretly working on my physical therapy, pushing myself with the single-minded goal of standing on my own 2 feet again and reclaiming everything that was mine. And now, Clara, it was time to see just how much your guilt was really worth. The following days were a blur of meetings and paperwork. I finalized the transfer of my mother's shares and began to exert my new influence. Having followed the company's business closely for years, the transition wasn't difficult. The company was diverse, with holdings in cosmetics, education, and real estate. But cosmetics were the core. I immediately proposed a new product line with a strong connection to medical science. As a new vice president, I faced gossip and resistance, especially with such an ambitious project. But I was all in. This was my comeback. It was a text from Clara that pulled me back into our personal drama. "Why aren't you home?" A week had passed since Julian's party. My sudden absence had clearly gotten her attention. I replied with mild irritation, "Coming back now." When I walked in, she was sitting on the sofa, a cigarette smoldering between her fingers. I had kept my recovery a secret, so I remained in the wheelchair. Her eyes flickered toward it, and a look of frustration crossed her face. "Where have you been?" "My parents wanted me home for a bit," I said. I knew she disliked my parents and their constant pressure about marriage, so I smoothly changed the subject. "Clara, let's go to the Maldives for New Year's." Her frown deepened, as if I'd suggested something utterly impossible. "Leo," she began, pausing as she weighed her words. My heart beat a little faster. "Let's cancel the engagement." Finally. Why? I asked, forcing a few tears to well up in my eyes, my acting almost failing as I fought back a surge of triumph. We don't love each other anymore, do we? She said. I'll compensate you. As expected, her offer was generous. 3 properties and a check with a very large number on it. It's over, she stated. I signed the agreement she'd brought without hesitation, suppressing a grin. Clara seemed lost for a moment, a strange, hesitant look in her eyes. Did she love me? Probably, once, very deeply. But her love was the kind that had room for more than one person. She wanted to have both Julian and me, but life is rarely so accommodating. Without a backward glance, I turned my wheelchair to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. My smirk must have been visible because anger began to brew in her expression. Leo, she gritted out. Don't you have anything else to say? I played dumb. Clara, you're the one who wanted the breakup. I agreed. Isn't that what you wanted? She was clearly not prepared for my easy acceptance. After all, I had pretended to be utterly devoted to her for 5 long years. If you run into any trouble, you can still come to me, she offered, a last-ditch effort to maintain some control. Thanks, Clara, I said, my voice dripping with false sincerity. I wish you and your lover all the happiness in the world. My smile seemed to sting her. Her glare sharpened, now tinged with a hint of panic. My tone turned cold. Clara, don't forget that I was once someone you couldn't have. Just hope you don't regret this. Her hand on my wrist loosened, then clenched into a fist at her side. All that was left on her face was confusion and a dazed, empty look in her eyes. Thanks to Clara's compensation, my new product line moved forward smoothly. I also used the funds to quietly buy up more company shares on the open market, further strengthening my position. I heard through the grapevine that Clara was arranging partnerships for Julian's brand, but his small company was making little impact on the domestic market. Instead, Julian seemed more interested in becoming her husband, posting coy, suggestive photos of them living together on his social media. It was exactly the kind of short-sighted, needy behavior that Clara despised. He had built his brand on being an independent, successful entrepreneur, and his followers were not pleased. His career began to slide, and Clara never gave him the official title he craved. In fact, her own personal social media page still featured the background photo of our hands intertwined, engagement rings on full display. Julian eventually lashed out at me online, but I just posted a witty comeback and then blocked him. Then came Clara's calls. I ignored them and blocked her number. She started calling from her assistant's phone. "Leo, don't be so childish," she said, her voice laced with frustration. That's when I finally unblocked her. She was right. I hadn't made them regret their actions enough yet. It wasn't time to celebrate. 2 months later, I invited both Clara and Julian to my new product launch. To my surprise, she replied almost immediately, accepting the invitation. She had never been so quick to respond when we lived together. Her excuses were always that she was busy, in a meeting, or didn't see the message. Now that we were apart, she suddenly had more free time. In the dressing room backstage, I looked at my reflection in the mirror, staring at my 2 strong, healthy legs. "I hope the man you see today doesn't disappoint you, Clara," I murmured to myself. "I'm back, as the Leo you once fell for." Sure enough, the moment I walked onto the stage, I saw the shock on her face. Her fingers, with their prominent knuckles, gripped the armrest of her chair so hard it looked like she might stand up. Sitting beside her, Julian looked like he had swallowed something sour. Standing under the bright lights, I gave the audience a confident smile and smoothly introduced my new product. "I hope to develop this into a successful sub-brand for our company. Thank you all for coming." Thunderous applause erupted. I scanned the audience and caught Clara's gaze. It was complex and intense. She leaned back in her chair, looking up at me, her eyes fixed and unblinking. Julian's face was dark with jealousy. A proud, confident smile spread across my face, a smile that was captured by countless cameras. "Leo, we heard a rumor that you were paralyzed. Is that true?" an interviewer called out during the Q&A. "Yes," I answered openly. "In college, I was in a car accident that paralyzed my legs. It was only after 5 years of intensive rehabilitation that I was able to stand here before you today. I believe that experience has given me the strength to overcome any obstacle." The audience gasped, and then the applause broke out again, even louder than before. Right after the event, Clara cornered me backstage. "Why didn't you tell me your legs had healed?" Her eyes were dark and intense, fixated on mine, barely concealing her anger. She completely ignored Julian, who was standing beside her looking visibly uncomfortable. For a moment, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I raised an eyebrow, smiling. "I wanted to tell you, but as I recall, you were rather busy flirting with your new lover." Her throat moved as she swallowed. "Are you angry with me?" she asked, her expression softening slightly, probably thinking my anger meant I still cared. I didn't give her a chance to respond. I simply turned and walked away, leaving her to stew in her own confusion. She was still useful to me. The launch was a massive success, trending across all social media platforms. In the age of viral videos, my speech was clipped into a powerful 1-minute segment that spread like wildfire. A charming, confident, and hardworking rich kid who overcame a disability. It was the perfect persona. I had all the right elements. It would have been strange if it hadn't gone viral. This was the result I had orchestrated. I wanted to not only boost the product line, but also make myself the face of the brand. My father and the other conservative shareholders had outdated views. In this fast-paced world, marketing and hype were everything. The product line quickly became a hot topic, with sales eclipsing the company's existing products by a factor of 10. Our stock price hit the daily trading limit the next day. I was still smiling at the soaring numbers when I got a call from my mother. "Leo, come home fast! There's trouble!" When I arrived, I found Sophie kneeling on the floor in front of our parents, her expression stubborn and defiant. Beside her stood a nervous-looking young man. My father held a short riding crop, his whole body trembling with rage. "You rejected the engagement with the Daniels' son for him," he yelled. "You even slapped Tim Daniel." Sophie held her head high. "He insulted Alex. Dad, I don't like Tim. How can you decide my marriage for me? I'm only 18. My father, livid, struck her with the crop. "Because you are the eldest. This marriage was arranged when you were a child. Do you have any idea how influential the Daniel family is?" "So you're selling your own daughter for influence?" she shot back. "I love Alex. If Tim ever touches me again, I'll hit him again." She grabbed the boy's hand and stormed out. As she passed me, she deliberately bumped my shoulder, her eyes full of disdain. My father clutched his heart, collapsing back into his chair. "Go," he gasped, pointing at the door. "Go bring her back. Make her apologize." I nodded and headed to the garage, taking my Porsche. Using the GPS tracker on her phone, I caught up with Sophie easily. She was on a black motorcycle, the boy sitting behind her with his arms wrapped around her waist. I matched her speed and rolled down my window. "Sophie, stop. Come back with me." She ignored me, twisting the throttle to speed up. When a red light finally stopped her, she slammed her fist on the bike in frustration. "Dad sent you, didn't he?" she scoffed. "He couldn't even keep a woman himself, so who do you think you are? You're just the pet cat that's been following me around since we were kids." I furrowed my brows. "When Dad cuts off your credit cards, don't come begging me for help." She snorted. "Don't threaten me, Leo. This house and this company will be mine sooner or later. I'm their only daughter." The light turned green, and she sped off. I didn't chase her. My father was so furious he ended up in the hospital. I turned the car around and headed there. My mother told me the Daniel family had already called, threatening to cut all business ties. Our latest batch of products had been seized by customs for allegedly failing to meet inspection standards. They were aiming to cripple our supply chain. The Daniel family had political connections. They wouldn't let their son be humiliated without retaliating. At the same time, the head of our PR department sent me a frantic message. Public opinion had turned against me. Julian had posted a long, rambling accusation online, painting me as a manipulative homewrecker who had interfered in his relationship with Clara. He included carefully selected photos from the product launch, showing Clara and me talking backstage, and fabricated chat logs. They were deliberately guiding the public's perception, turning lies into truth through sheer repetition. The inspirational image I had so carefully built shattered. Netizens, feeling deceived, swarmed my social media accounts with hateful comments. My father, lying in his hospital bed, saw the news and his blood pressure spiked. "You and your sister," he wheezed. "You're trying to ruin this company." I looked at the angry messages on my phone with a completely calm expression. "Dad, just rest. The doctor said you need to stay calm." "You're all going to be the death of me," he muttered. I looked at him, my calm unshaken. "Dad, I have a way to fix this. I can steer the company through this crisis. But you're getting old. It's time to hand over power." I leaned over the bed, my hand gripping his tightly. He was no longer the imposing figure I had once feared. My dad's eyes flared with anger. "So this is what you've been waiting for? You want the company shares?" My mother rushed over. "Leo, how can you think about shares at a time like this? Don't upset your father." "Mom," I said, turning to her, my voice thick with emotion I didn't entirely feel. "Why did you always think I wasn't good enough? What's so great about Sophie? I'm your child, too. Why am I not capable?" I let tears well in my eyes. My parents had always responded to displays of emotion, not to assertions of strength. I turned back to my father. "Dad, you're in the hospital. Who else can take control right now? That useless daughter of yours? Do you want to watch the company you built go down in flames?" My mother finally calmed down, her eyes filled with a complicated mix of emotions as she looked at me. "I always thought a man without ambition couldn't achieve great things," she said after a long silence. "But Mom, I'm your son. Ambition and the desire for power were ingrained in me from the day I was born." I got what I wanted, another 30% of the company shares, making me the largest single shareholder. That afternoon, I received a congratulatory text from Clara. I blocked her number immediately. She seemed to get a thrill out of it, calling me from one new number after another. Unable to stand the constant buzzing, I finally answered. The moment I picked up, I heard her drunken voice. "Leo, do you hate me that much now? Why don't you love me anymore?" "Clara," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Do you really think I could ever forgive a woman who cheated on me?" There was silence on the other end, then a slightly hurt tone. "Leo, you weren't like this before." "If you mean before the last 5 years, then of course. But if you mean even further back than that, Clara, you seem to forget. I have always been like this." I sent a recording of that call to Julian. Online, the abuse continued. The company's crisis worsened. I remained silent, waiting for the public outrage to reach its peak. Sure enough, the next day, Julian went on another rant on social media, igniting a firestorm. I waited until noon, the peak time for online traffic, and released my official clarification. I posted the concrete evidence of Clara's infidelity and Julian's pursuit of her, including clear video footage from the security cameras I had installed on her yacht years ago. Heartless woman defends arrogant lover, teams up to bully her wheelchair-bound fiancé. Every word was explosive. I hired marketing firms and bot accounts to spread the story like wildfire. The narrative shifted dramatically. Julian's previously active social media accounts fell silent. He messaged me from an anonymous account. "Leo, are you crazy? You know you're destroying Clara with this. You love her, don't you? Apologize and say it's fake, or she'll never forgive you." He was so confident, so certain that my supposed deep love for Clara meant I would never truly harm her. He miscalculated badly. What did their futures matter to me? I didn't reply. I simply took a screenshot of his messages and posted them online for the world to see. The post went viral, and Julian instantly went quiet. Quickly, netizens discovered the background photo on Clara's social media, the picture of our hands still there. Everyone waited for her response. If Clara wanted to save herself, she would have to save Julian too. But Clara said nothing. She just silently used her family's influence to get the trending topics removed one by one, until the internet was scrubbed clean. But the damage was done. Her family's company, the L Group, and Julian's small brand were now the focus of all the public outrage. All the taunts and curses I had once faced were now directed at them. I chuckled as I watched their company search metrics skyrocket for all the wrong reasons. That afternoon, Clara and Julian showed up at my company with a lawyer. Clara led the way, with Julian trailing behind her, trying to cling to her arm, only to be coldly shaken off. In my new CEO's office, Clara crossed her arms, the ring on her right hand gleaming under the office lights. She stared intensely at my empty fingers. "Where's your ring?" she gritted out. Julian and the lawyer looked taken aback. This was not the opening they had expected. "Lost it," I said casually. Her eyes turned red-rimmed. "We designed that together. We went to France to have a master craftsman make it." She went silent. Julian looked anxious. "Leo, hurry up and issue a clarification statement." I shot him a look as if he were an idiot. "Why should I? One of you cheated, the other played the lover. I'm just telling everyone the truth. What needs clarifying?" He was so angry he practically stomped his foot. "Do you want to destroy Clara? Do you realize the impact a scandal like this has on the L Group?" Clara lifted her head, her eyes full of weariness. "What does that have to do with me?" I chuckled. Her eyes lost their light completely. The truth was, a scandal like this couldn't truly shake a behemoth like the L Group. It was just gossip. She had come today seeking answers for herself. Julian's little workshop, however, was a different story. "Clara, do you see how poisonous this man is?" Julian cried out. "He doesn't love you. He's just after your money." "Shut up!" Clara's low, raspy voice cut through the air. Charles shuddered and went quiet. "Leo, delete those posts," she said to me. "Let Julian go. Consider it an apology for having people bully him back in college." I scoffed. Clara squinted slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, turning my smile to Julian, "you really should hate me. I didn't get people to humiliate you back then, but when your father was illegally transferring company assets offshore, I was the one who found the evidence and reported him to the authorities." Julian stared at me, disbelief turning to pure rage on his face. "It was you! You bastard! You ruined my family!" He lunged for me, but Clara held him back. "Enough! Julian, were you playing me this whole time?" She was truly angry now, her grip on his shoulder so tight it looked like she might break it. Did she really not see how Julian was deliberately imitating my old self to get close to her? I had security drag a screaming Julian out of my office. "Save me, Clara," he begged. "Don't you like me? You can't abandon me." But she never gave him another glance. Once her interest faded, Clara was utterly ruthless. My phone rang. It was the private detective I'd hired to follow Sophie. "All right, got it," I said, and hung up. I showed Clara the door. She didn't seem to want to leave. Her deep eyes locked on me. "Where are you going?" "Home," I said impatiently. "To deal with some family business." "I'll go with you," she said quickly, as if afraid I'd refuse. "Your family, having me there, might help." Her eyes showed a manufactured tenderness and concern. She knew how I was treated by my family. For all those years, she had dodged every invitation to my home, cheated on me, and left me to face my family's storms alone. Now that I no longer needed her, she was offering herself up as a shield. How ridiculous. Still, I took her along. She might prove useful. After being gone for days, Sophie finally came home. The first thing she did was walk up to me and slap me across the face. "You drove Alex away, didn't you?" Before I could react, Clara leaped forward, shoving Sophie so hard she fell to the ground. "Who do you think you are, laying a hand on Leo?" she snarled, her eyes red with fury. I smirked. This Clara was just like the girl from high school, destined to be my enforcer. Sophie, who had been pampered her entire life, was shocked, then furious. "And who are you? Leo's a little lapdog? Make her let go or I'll tell Mom and you'll be in for it." I had spent years carefully molding my sister into the spoiled, inept brat she was, letting her get away with everything, cleaning up all her messes, so that when the time came, my parents would see she was unfit to lead. Now, it was time to break the arrogance I had so carefully nurtured. I went to the storage room and came back with a baseball bat. I rested it against her leg. "Didn't you call me a cripple, Sophie?" What are you doing?" she stammered. "Do you believe I could break your leg too?" "You're crazy, Leo!" she shrieked. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Tim Daniel, the jilted fiancé, dressed impeccably and followed by a group of bodyguards. I handed the bat to him. "Just don't break any bones," I said. As I turned to leave, Sophie's trembling voice stopped me. "Where is Alex?" she asked, her voice shaking with fear, but still asking for him, not for mercy for herself. I decided to crush her last hope. "Sophie, do you really think a guy like Alex would actually love you?" I had paid him to act the part, a custom-made boyfriend crafted to her exact preferences. As I closed the door, I saw the utter despair in her eyes. Alex was already on a plane, heading to study abroad with the money I gave him. Sophie got the beating she deserved, and later I sent her off to a boarding school in the United States, where her poor English and pampered attitude would ensure she faced some real hardship for the first time in her life. After that day, Clara was a constant presence. She showed up at my office, at business parties, clinging to me like a ghost. No matter how much I ignored or mocked her, she was unwavering. "Leo, if you want to control your company completely, I can be your sharpest tool," she insisted. "I'm the best marriage option for you." She still didn't get it. I already had the power I needed. Then, she disappeared from my life. A nationwide crackdown on corruption in the pharmaceutical industry had begun. Every company was on edge. After 5 years in Clara's inner circle, did she really think I hadn't prepared for this? Business warfare isn't always fought in the boardroom. Sometimes the most lethal weapon is the law. An investigation was launched into the L Group. The government needed a high-profile scapegoat, and I fed them all the evidence they needed from the shadows. The L Group, once a titan, was brought to its knees. Several of its top executives were facing prison, including Clara, who had recently been given a key role in the company. When I saw her again, it was on the financial news. She was gaunt and weary, being led away for questioning, all of her fierce demeanor gone. Meanwhile, I solidified my position as the head of my family's company. Financial magazines lauded me as a brilliant young entrepreneur. To the outside world, it looked like I had endured 5 years of hardship and emerged victorious. But only I knew the truth. Those years of lying low, of playing the fool, were not years of suffering. They were the most crucial years of my life, the years that allowed for my rebirth. Our paths had been vastly different, but in the end, I had reached the destination I always wanted.